Hey everyone, and welcome to Autism Awakening, the podcast that helps you help your child with autism. My name's Dr. Jared Skowron. I've been an autism biomedical doctor for 21 years, and every week I take my lunch on Thursdays and record a live podcast on our Facebook channel, Spectrum Awakening Facebook. So if you are ever interested in taking part of a live recording of a podcast, come to our Facebook page every Thursday at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can watch our live podcast and ask live questions in the comment sections. So what I've been doing this past year, 2025, is assembling a 3-month mini series of podcasts to walk you through how autism is a medical condition and how you can help your child medically in addition to the therapies that you're already doing. So we pick a topic every week. We walk through that medical issue of autism. We talk about what it is, how it expresses, what you're going to see in your kids, how you can test for it, and how you can help treat it using natural therapies instead of pharmaceuticals. And everything that we do is backed in lots of science. So here we go. We've been going through January. I can't believe it's February already. But we started January with the beginning of our mini series about the medical issues of autism. And where we've gotten so far is talking about, first, why does autism happen? Okay, so we talked about the genetics of autism and how you get genetically tested and how you can treat different genetic abnormalities that cause autism. We also talked about autism regressions and how regressions into autism are different than genetic causes of autism because there are multiple causes of autism, and those kids who regress are often due to inflammation, autoimmune attacks on the brain, viruses, toxins, and one of the biggest toxins out there for our kids is Tylenol, also known as acetaminophen and paracetamol, hugely toxic to the brain of a growing child. So we talked about that in our regression podcast, and then we kind of jumped the line last week because we started talking about detox and started talking about our brand new detox supplement, which is Detox Dynamite. So I normally don't like to do detox early in our medical journey of autism. For me, that's later, and I'll get to that and explain why. But what we're going to talk about today is what I wanted to talk about last week, which is what is the first thing that you should do to help your child with autism? Okay. So we're not talking about the whys. We're not talking about, geez, were they born with a genetic issue? Was it some kind of regression? And yeah, it was around the time I went and saw my doctor and went to the pediatrician and I took a bunch of Tylenol and there were viruses involved. So we're not talking about the why anymore. We're jumping into what can I do to help my child? And number one, hands down, if you needed to start with one thing, and for those of you who are listening to this podcast who are new to Spectrum Awakening, please start here, okay? And those of you who've been doing this for a while, maybe you've already done it. But the first thing you have to do is make sure your child is pooping, okay? We're getting back to basics. Remember when your child was an infant? What were the basics? Well, they need to be fed, they need to sleep, and they need to pee and poop. That's the basics of staying alive, all right? So, excuse me, that's what we need to do with our kids. Number one, let's get back to these basics, and the first basic we're going to get to is pooping, okay? So we want to make sure your child is pooping on a regular basis. And let's explain what that means, because I think many people, even pediatricians, have a different definition of healthy pooping, okay? Healthy pooping, in my opinion, is getting rid of all of your poop every day, okay? That's all I'm asking for. You've got poop, you make poop every day. I'd like you to get rid of it all. That's very simple, very basics, all right? I would also like the consistency to be all together, all right? I want that poop to come out as a log, all right? I don't want just a big pile of mush. I don't want hard little rabbit pellets of Cocoa Puffs. No, I want a nice brown log. That is healthy pooping. And it talks a lot about the health of our body and about the health of our gut. So think about your child's poop, all right? You can have many extremes. There are children who will be very constipated, okay? And what does constipation look like? Constipation is either really hard poop, okay? Tiny little rabbit pellets, tiny little Cocoa Puffs, okay? Or not pooping often. So you can have a typical poop once every 3 days or once every 7 days, and it's still constipation because it's not as frequent, all right? And the other way that constipation shows, and this is the tricky way, so I want you to think about this. The other way that constipation shows is when you are really constipated, like that thing is a brick and it is stuck up in there, and it is not moving. What the body tries to do is flush it out. So it sprays water, kind of like a car wash, right? It sprays water against that poop and it starts to slough off some of the poop. So you start getting these little piles, right? So many kids who are chronically constipated will actually have these tiny little poop piles a few times a day, okay? So this is how constipation looks. It's either rock hard, or it's infrequent, or it's this multiple times a day little piles as the body's trying to flush it out. Now, how do you know? How do you know, hey, my kid's got this really hard brick way up high, okay? You can go talk to your doctor, talk to your pediatrician, and they can do an x-ray. And an x-ray, and many of you may have already had this, an x-ray will show stool that's stuck, okay? And stuck stool is hard to say, so we use the word impacted. Impacted stool is just poop sitting there, and it's not moving in the body. Body's trying to flush it out, all right? Excuse me. So that's how constipation looks. Obviously, on the other side of things, diarrhea is loose stool or very frequent stool or very watery stool. A little bit easier with diarrhea. It's not like diarrhea is gonna look like constipation, where constipation could look like diarrhea because these multiple little piles. Okay, so that's kind of the definition, and where it seems like that may be very basic. I hear stories from families about their pediatrician where the child goes in and mom's like, he only poops once a week. And doctor's like, that's fine. Yeah, you're good. At least it's once a week. Okay? No. We've got definitions for this. We've got expectations for this. We know what the human body should be doing healthy. All right? So constipation is a huge problem for our kids. Now, we know what the poop's going to look like now, but how else does that present in our child? Okay? I want you to imagine. Let's take a step back. Let's sit back. Close your eyes if you want to. Leave them open if you want to. I want you to put your feet in their shoes. All right? And you know what? One of my first teachers, my first few years of elementary school, I was in a Montessori school that was run by nuns. Okay? So very strict, obviously. And I remember one thing that one of my teachers said, and she said, always put yourself in the other person's shoes. Okay? And what a great, simple kind of life lesson to give us reflection on how people are feeling or how we feel based on what somebody did, around us or to us or near us or wherever. Okay? How do they feel? How do we feel? Why am I interacting this way? Why am I reacting? Why are they reacting? So put yourself in the shoes of a child with autism. Okay? And put yourself into that place of sensory issues. All right? Where they're feeling everything so much greater, okay? Can't handle you cutting my hair, can't handle you cutting my nails, can't handle the tag in the shirt, okay? Or different tastes or sensations of different foods, all right? Put yourself in that extremely irritated sensory physical place, okay? And now you got to go to the bathroom. Now there's a poop and the turtle head's poking out, all right? How are you going to feel? And then how are you going to act based on those feelings, all right? Because our kids pretty much, our kids just express what they're feeling, all right? They really don't have that filter. I'm not sure when that filter happens where I'm going to express how I'm feeling. Oh, wait, there's a reaction and a consequence from that, okay? So kids are just going to express how they feel. So very sensitive, very sensory, feeling everything dialed up to 11. And now you got a poop coming out, okay? What are you going to do? You're going to feel irritated. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to be agitated, okay? And then I know what I do when I have to go to the bathroom, but there's no toilet around. I start squeezing my butt and walking on my toes, okay? I mean, we all know the look. Hey, this is the I got to go to the bathroom look as we shuffle down, all right? When your childs are toe walking, when your kids are walking around, take a look and ask yourself, geez, do they look like they have to poop? All right? Because they probably do. They probably have to poop. Add on to this are kids who have withholding constipation, okay? Withholding constipation is different. Withholding constipation is when you physically just clench your butt cheeks and don't let it out. And this happens when kids are constipated. They're constipated, they poop, it hurts, maybe they bleed a little bit or tear something, and they learn, oh, that hurts, I'm not going to do that. And so they hold their poop in more and it gets bigger and it hurts more and it's this vicious cycle, right? So this is what you're going to see, not just in the poop, but also symptomatically in your child. This irritation, this agitation, this toe walking, okay? Because they're uncomfortable. And trust me, this is the first thing you should do with your kids if you haven't done it already, because it's going to make them feel better really quickly. Okay, so, excuse me. Let me get into some science. Excuse me. Sorry. Actually, let me talk briefly about how we can help. Then we'll get into all our scientific research, okay? And I love what Ewa just said. Ewa said, my son stopped tiptoeing when we did a parasite cleanse and we got stuff out. There's bugs, there's toxins, look, that exit ramp is for trash, all right? We pee and poop stuff out to get rid of waste products, to get rid of infections, to get rid of things we don't want. So yes, Ewa says, hey, parasite cleanse, help my child with the toe walking because we got some bad stuff out. That's what we want to do. All right, so let's go back. How do we help a child poop more? We know the signs of the poop. We know the signs of the child. How can we help? Now, let me say first off, I despise Miralax. Okay? I despise Miralax because there are scientific side effects from their safety studies. So I read the Miralax safety studies. I have a podcast on this from last year, I think last summer. You can go back and watch. And 6% of people in the safety study had psychiatric side effects. Anxiety, depression, mental changes, all right? I don't want my child who's nonverbal to feel those feelings and not be able to express them, all right? I don't want my child to feel those feelings anyway, never mind not being able to tell me about it. So why should I give a medication that's got potential side effects of that and other things, okay? When I could use something more natural, safer, proven effective, and has been used for hundreds of years. That's what I'm going to do, okay? So the number one thing that's been used for constipation since literally the 1600s is magnesium, okay? Magnesium is a mineral that loosens poop, period, okay? Been using it forever. Your grandparents used it. Your parents used it. Everybody's used it before Miralax came out, okay? Now, sometimes magnesium doesn't work. So there are other things you can do. And what we've found is pairing magnesium with electrolytes really helps you poop. Why the electrolytes? What do the electrolytes do? Well, electrolytes move water. All right. You may have done different experiments in high school with osmosis, right? And you've got two different parts of water that are separated, and you can add salt to one side, and the water will seemingly magically move towards the salt. Okay. And this is how we can improve constipation. If you have all these electrolytes inside your colon, well, the body did osmosis, just not your body. It's just physics. Osmosis moves water into the colon, and now we've got looser stool. Okay? So electrolytes and magnesium, in my opinion, are hands down the best. Hands down the best. There are other things like senna, and we're going to talk about some other really outside the box stuff for our autistic kids individually. So let's go down that road with some science. All right. So everybody, cheaters on. There we go. Cheaters on. So our first, excuse me again. Our first research study here talks about autism medical comorbidities. And they talk about gastrointestinal disorders are significantly more common in children with autism. They occur in 46 to 84% of them. The most common GI problems observed in children with autism are chronic constipation, chronic diarrhea, reflux, nausea, vomiting, flatulence, chronic bloating, abdominal discomfort, ulcers, inflammatory bowel disease, food intolerance, and failure to thrive. Okay? Plenty of stuff. Here's another study, chronic constipation in children with autism, that talks about the risk for abnormal colonic motility increased 11% for every year increase of constipation. Odds for abnormal motility were 30 times higher in autism who were soiling and, stuff is sneaking out than people who don't soil. So let me kind of explain this research study a little bit more. What this talks about is constipation with poor colonic motility. And let me explain what that is, okay? Poop just doesn't fall out of us, okay? It's not just like beam gravity, okay? Our intestine, our gut, our colon is a muscle, all right? It squeezes that food through the intestine so we can digest it, so we can absorb the nutrients, so we can then put in waste products that go out in our poop, all right? We need muscles to move it along. I forget how long the intestine is. It's like 25 feet or something like that, okay? It just keeps going. So with that, you need a lot of muscle function. With our kids who specifically have hypotonia. Sorry, I almost forgot the word. Who have low muscle tone, hypotonia. It's not just skeletal muscles. It's not just your arms and your fingers and your feet and your hands, okay? It's also your intestines. And so people with really chronic constipation in our subset of autistic kids, it's due to mitochondrial issues, the very, very severe ones. And I'll let me show you a study. All right. But again, this research study, which talks about the colonic motility, which means it worsens about 10% every year your child's constipated because it's backing that poop up and the muscles are just getting more and more tired. All right. But again, poor motility causing constipation just because the muscles aren't moving the poop out is 30 times higher in autism. Okay. Than in kids who squirt a little poop out because they're holding it in. All right. And when you just hold all that stuff in, the problem gets worse and worse. All right. Let's keep going with some more research. Excuse me. I'm so phlegmy this afternoon. I don't know why. Not good on the podcast. All right. Food selectivity and its implications associated with GI disorders in children with autism. Obviously, our kids are picky eaters, but the restriction of food groups that modulate the gut probiotics or the gut microbiome, such as fruits and vegetables and fiber, okay, triggers intestinal dysbiosis together with a poor immune system and leaky gut can worsen GI issues, all right? So what does this say? That means certain foods are going to help you poop. And if you don't eat those certain foods, you're going to be more at risk for constipation, all right? So we're going to go over those foods in a little bit. All right, let's move on with this other study. This one, I believe, is from Japan. Talks about association of early childhood constipation with the risk of autism, all right? So what it talks about down here is that the incidence of autism was 12 people per 100,000 who were constipated and only 8 people out of 100,000 who were not constipated. So this was basically saying constipation in early childhood was correlated with a significantly increased risk of autism. What it basically said is if your child's constipated when they're young, when they're an infant, it's 50% more likely your child will have autism. Okay. Now, constipation doesn't cause autism, but constipation is such a major symptom in autism. If you notice it, then all of a sudden these risks go higher. Okay. You can fix the constipation in a young child. It's not going to change their autism risk, but it's showing us that constipation is extremely prevalent in autism. And remember, it causes behaviors. All right. So here's a nice research study. Psychiatric features of children with chronic functional constipation. The aberrant behavior checklist score and frequency of individuals with autism were significantly higher in the constipation group. Chronic functional constipation was significantly associated with autism and with worse behaviors. So really simple, guys. They took people who were constipated and they had them do surveys. Said, how's your child's behavior? All right. When you're constipated, it's worse. Period. You're more hyper. You're more angry. You're more agitated and uncomfortable. Okay. Carolyn, I'm actually glad. I love that you just asked that question because I got a research study on exactly that. So, all right, let's talk some more. We've obviously seen some research studies that show constipation is prevalent in autism, period. All right. It is super prevalent in autism. And the longer it goes, the worse it gets because stuff just gets stuck up there. All right. So you've got to make sure your child's pooping on a regular basis. All right. Here are some simple things you can do. Okay. Here are things that harden poop: dairy, bananas, calcium, and iron. Okay. If your child's constipated, reduce the dairy or eliminate it. Reduce the bananas or eliminate it. What loosens poop? prunes, soft pears, magnesium, and potassium. All right, a nice, easy list for you guys to remember so you can change dietarily what you want. It's not about fiber, all right? A lot of people are like, yeah, fiber for constipation. You've got to make sure you get the electrolytes. You've got to make sure you get the fluids and the water. If your child's taking fiber and not drinking enough water, they're going to get more constipated. It's just going to bind up in there, all right? And again, with these low muscle tone issues of our kids, throwing a ball of fiber down there isn't going to magically move stuff. It's got to really be pushed through. All right. A few more things, guys. How many research studies do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll get to our live questions. All right. Here's a research study talking about magnesium versus senna for the treatment of chronic constipation. And senna is an herb that works well for constipation. The response rate for overall improvement was 11% in a placebo group. So they had a magnesium group, they had a senna group, and they had a placebo group. So 12% improved in placebo group, 69% in the senna group, and 68% in the magnesium group. All right. Treatment-related adverse events were 0%. So really simple study. They compared senna to magnesium to placebo and looked at adverse events. Senna and magnesium were practically identical in how well they worked in about 70% of kids. And there were no adverse effects. There's no side effects. There's no 6% of people with anxiety and depression. Why would you do that? I don't understand. All right. But again, magnesium and electrolytes works better in general than just magnesium alone. So magnesium and electrolytes, therefore, probably going to work better than senna. All right. So Carolyn just asked about a certain probiotic called Lactobacillus reuteri. All right. And ironically, I had a study here talking about Lactobacillus reuteri and magnesium with functional chronic constipation. What this showed was the magnesium group and a combination group, magnesium and the Lactobacillus probiotic, showed a significant decrease in stool consistency, meaning it was looser. But the probiotic Lactobacillus reuteri on its own did not show that improvements. So I know a lot of people will say, hey, constipation, try probiotics. And for some, it works. Okay. For some people, probiotics will help with constipation, and that's amazing. I love it. I don't see it work all the time, where I think things like magnesium electrolytes work much more frequently than that, but it happens and it's possible. This research study talks about the specific probiotic Lactobacillus reuteri and how it does not help with constipation versus magnesium, okay? But there's a lot of different probiotics out there, and you never know why your child is constipated. Maybe that child needed probiotics. Maybe that child needed electrolytes. Maybe that child needed mitochondrial support to help the muscles, okay? So let's get into that mitochondria. Let's rewind the clock. 33 years. All right. But in a way back time called the 20th century, in a year of 1992 when I graduated high school, this study was published talking about carnitine deficiency, a possible cause of GI dysmotility. Remember, the muscles aren't moving. An infant, this is a case study, an infant with delayed development, nourished with a soy diet, which was deficient in carnitine, had gastrointestinal dysmotility, manifested by post-eating vomiting, postprandial is post-eating, oral drooling, delayed gastric emptying, and constipation, infrequent bowel movements. After dietary supplementation of carnitine, the GI symptoms resolved. All right? Did you catch that? Given carnitine, the GI symptoms of dysmotility, vomiting, drooling, and constipation resolved on carnitine. All right? I was looking at the research study here for a timing, but there is none. Why did this work? Carnitine helps with mitochondria. Mitochondria gives energy for muscles to move. We need that whole GI tract from mouth to esophagus to stomach to intestines to poop to toilet. Needs to be moving. If it's not, then it might go the wrong way. Your poop isn't coming out. Your food is coming up. Your saliva is coming out. Everything's going in a reverse direction because you don't have the muscle strength to do it. This is why mitochondrial support, like our Mitomax supplement, okay? Mitochondrial support, like carnitine, like other nutrients that are out there, can be amazing for really chronic, stubborn constipation, specifically in our kids. So if you're trying things like magnesium, you're trying senna, you're trying fiber, you're trying probiotics, you're trying electrolytes, nothing's working. Okay, where do you go from there? What's that next level up? That next level up is mitochondrial support. So try our MitoMax supplement. Also, our Mito ATP. Our Mito ATP seems to work very well on gut symptoms versus other internal symptoms of mitochondria. So our Mito ATP, do I have any of that? I do. Hold on a second. This is our supplement Mito ATP, mitochondria ATP. All right, sorry, it's backwards. Mitochondria produce energy. We remember that from high school biology. The form of energy is a molecule called ATP. Okay, so when we give mitochondrial vitamins, mitochondrial support, we're giving things like carnitine and CoQ10 and PQQ and NADH and low number B vitamins like B1, B2, B3. NAD is popular now. All of those supplements, all of those nutrients are what the mitochondria use to produce energy. Okay, and the eventual product is ATP. It's like a car assembly line. Okay, I've got a frame, I got wheels, I got doors, I got horns, I got blinkers, and then at the end, I got a car. All right, that's what the mitochondria are doing. So that car, that energy is ATP, and you can get it as a supplement. And that's what we have here is Mito ATP. All right, works great directly giving that mitochondrial energy to the gut. All right, I gotta warn you though, there's a lot of misleading marketing out there. There's a lot of products out on the market that have the words ATP, but they do not contain ATP. Pisses me off because you're misleading somebody. You're like, hey, free money. You're like, it's not money. You know, it's like the joke I tell my daughter. I said, did you lose a roll of $100 bills with a rubber band? She's like, yeah. And I said, well, I found the rubber band. All right, so don't mislead me. So you've got to look for that ATP. So right there, you know, on our ingredient list, there's the ATP right there. Again, I know it's backwards, but you get the idea. So that can work really well on the gut. Excuse me. All right. Here's another one. I feel like I'm rambling today. So here we go. Supplementation with carnitine reduces the severity of constipation. More recent study in 2017. The free carnitine level significantly correlates with severity of constipation. Free carnitine was significantly lower in constipations compared with non-constipation, and the severity of the constipation was significantly relieved after carnitine supplementation. All right? Again, really straightforward, guys. Carnitine helps with constipation. Why? It provides energy to move that poop out. All right? That's what we're talking about. What I also found interesting here is with my patients in my telemedicine practice, we're always ordering and testing free carnitine levels. It's really simple. It's a urine test. It's done by every lab out there, Quest, LabCorp, hospitals all around the world. You can test urine for free carnitine. The lower the free carnitine, the worse the constipation, the worse the mitochondrial issues. Okay, giving carnitine helps. So we do this test all the time. Insurance is going to cover it. I don't need this test to say, hey, let's try some carnitine. But it's nice to see. We order with all our patients. All right, last study, I wanted to throw you a weird one. Okay. Ewa, I want to answer Ewa's question really fast. Ewa's in the UK. We have a European distributor and that's solo for us, and they're Mandimart, MANDIMART.co.uk. That is our UK distributor. We also have mandimart.eu in the European Union. So Mandimart had to split because of Brexit. But Mandimart is our sole distributor throughout Europe. So go there. We do ship internationally, but DHL fees and now tariffs and customs fees, who knows the cost of this stuff. But that's why we're trying to get independent distributors in other countries. All right. Last but not least, as a wild one, all right, what else can help with constipation? Well, microbiota transfer therapy, all right? That's fecal transplant. That's putting somebody else's poop into your colon, all right? But guess what? Putting somebody else's poop in your colon helps autism symptoms, at least based on this study 8 years ago. The GI symptom rating scale revealed 80% reduction of GI symptoms at the end of fecal transplant, including significant improvements in symptoms of constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, and abdominal pain. All right. Now, fecal transplant, I know, is a little out there, but fecal transplant's now being used to cure abdominal disease. Now, let me say that again. Abdominal disease like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's now being cured by fecal transplant, taking somebody else's healthy poop, putting it in your intestine, okay? We're doing this now for autism. You have to find somebody to do it with you. But I literally just talked to a patient before this podcast who said fecal transplant was amazing for their child. Amazing. And I hadn't seen this kid in 5 years, and what a difference. I mean, what a difference. Talking, engaged, processing, understanding. I mean, way on to his road to recovery, which is awesome. Okay. And fecal transplant was one of the things they did out of many things, right? But it's been amazing, and it's so intriguing. We talk about probiotics, right? And like, oh, let me take some probiotics to help my gut. And then we talk about, poop. Poop is 50% of probiotics. All right, let me say that again. A poop is 50% probiotics. So imagine you poop, right? And then I take half of that. What is that? Let's just say 4 or 5 inches, okay? That's all probiotics. I mean, can you imagine how many capsules of probiotic you need to match that volume, okay? And now we're going to take that and insert it into your intestines. It's a massive blast of probiotics where you need it most. And 90% of our probiotics are in our colon. They're in our large intestine. Our small intestine up top here, it's only 10%. There's really not much, okay? So that's where we need it. So it's really intriguing stuff, the potential for fecal transplant with autism. But you got to find somebody to do it. You've got to find a facility. Sometimes they're oral, sometimes they're rectal. But there's going to be docs in your area doing it. You just got to Google it. Just Google fecal transplant near me and talk to somebody and ask them. And let's say, hey, I want some help. What can you do for my kid? All right. So there's a lot out there. Let me kind of sum up and then we'll get to our live questions. There's a lot out there that you can do to really help your child. And today's podcast, we're talking about starting a certain order of medical treatment for your kids and what you can do. Number 1, make sure they're pooping. Now, most of our kids with autism are constipated. We saw that in a lot of scientific research studies. But constipation can be deceiving, all right? It can be misleading because if you're only pooping once a week, you know you're constipated. If your poops are rock hard rabbit pellets, you know you're constipated. But if you're pooping 3 to 5 little piles a day, you're still constipated because your body's just trying to flush out what's stuck up inside, right? Now, the only real way to know if it's true or not is to get an x-ray, but if your child is agitated, if your child's hyper, if your child toe walks, highly likely that they've got impacted stool up there. So what do we do? Okay. As we mentioned before, I feel clinically the most effective thing for constipation is a combination of magnesium and electrolytes. Now we've got that in our brown, I'm looking for it on my desk here. We've got that in our brown log train supplement, okay? This is our brown log fiber supplement, but it looks very similar. It says brown log train, okay? That's magnesium and electrolytes. Works amazing. I don't like Miralax. I've said it before and I'll say it again because their safety studies showed over 5% of people get a psychiatric side effect like anxiety, depression, mental changes. I don't want that for my kid, period. When there's something else that's as effective and safer. Period. Okay. You can also use Senna. We saw that in a research study. Probiotics, in my opinion, are hit or miss. We saw a research study that said magnesium's better than probiotics. We do have some kids where probiotics works. Who knows? But then your kids with really chronic, really stubborn constipation, nothing's working. Okay. They probably have more severe mitochondrial issues. Mitochondria, part of the cell that produce energy. Energy makes muscles squeeze. Our intestines are one big long muscle. Got to push that poop out. So if you don't have the muscular strength, this is where we use mitochondrial supplements like carnitine. Okay, we saw carnitine in multiple research studies helping with constipation. All right, helping with vomiting or burp up or drooling. I mean, these are symptoms I hear in my telemedicine clinic. So get that poop out. Okay, and we also talked briefly about fecal transplant. I say if you can find somebody to do it, try it because the potentials are too good. Potentials are too good. All right, let's wrap up with the coupon and our live questions. All right, so coupon of the weekend is Poop20. Poop20 is going to get you 20% off all of our supplements, all of our lab tests until February 9th, 2025. If you want one-on-one help, you can always schedule a telemedicine video appointment with me. Just go to our website, spectrumawakening.com. There's a tab at the top, appointments. Boom, click it, book it, you're done. All right, let's get to, the live questions. Sorry, I was just looking for some other supplements on, here it is. I was looking for this. This is our mitochondrial supplement, the Mitomax. Okay, this has got a lot of carnitine in it. Again, carnitine's one of the most important mitochondrial supplements in different mitochondrial formulas to really help with constipation. Saw a lot of research on that. But Mitomax is great. Doesn't have B vitamins to set your kids off, hyperactivity and sleep problems. So try that. Try the ATP if you need something simpler. And you're good to go. All right, live questions for everyone. We've got live shout outs to Jasmine. Jasmine said, just wanted to thank you. Dr. Skowron has changed my and my son's life. Thank you, Jasmine. Charlie's one of our patients, and Jasmine's always on our podcasts and just totally supportive of how we've been able to help Charlie. And we love it. We love helping kids. That's why we're here. That's all we want to do is help your kids. All right, Rita, my 4-year-old goes to poop after 2 days, not every day, and often clenches his teeth and laughs out loud for no reasons. What supplement should I go for? Well, Rita, let's start with brown log train. Let's get him pooping daily. Maybe not, every other day. Let's get it pooping daily and let's make sure it's big. When I say big, what is big? All right, well, let me say this. I remember when my 3-year-old daughter would poop and it would go from underneath to sticking out the water, right? And we made sure she pooped every day. We did things to make sure this wasn't 7 days of poop. So sometimes you look at a kid and you're like, where the heck did you put that? It's huge, right? So it got to be big. It's got to be big. All right. So he clenches his teeth, which makes me think he's in pain, and then laughs out loud, probably because he finally passed it. I mean, hey, TMI, I know if I'm a little, stuck and I finally get it out. Whoo! Yeah, felt good, didn't it? Right? We all been there. So go with the brown log train first, and then let's start with that. All right. The laughing out loud, I was concerned about inappropriate laughter, which is a candida yeast symptom. But if it's just laughing after you pass that big poop, I probably laugh too. That's all right. All right, Brianna. Hey, Dr. Skowron, what do you think of another certain type of product? I've never used those, Brianna, so I don't know. Also, how do you recommend using bentonite clay? I read it can clog pipes, so I'm scared. Yeah, just make sure there's a lot of water. You just got to dilute it. That's all. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm congested today. Brianna, how can you help with sound sensitivity? Sensory's hard. Sensory's really tough, at least for me. I tell my patients in my telemedicine clinic, I'm going to have more luck with language than sensory. Sensory's a tough one. But I think sensory has to do with inflammation as well as with a fear response. And let me give you this example. Again, just like we did earlier in the podcast, take a sit back, close your eyes, keep your eyes open. I want to put you in a certain place, okay? Think about this. It's the middle of the night. You're asleep in your bed. Everything's great. And then you hear a window crash, okay? You are up. You are up fast. You are on high alert because you heard a window break in your house and you fear you're in danger, okay? So guess what? Now I can hear everything. I can hear every squeak, every little whisper of the trees. I can hear. My hearing's dialed up, okay? I can see in those dark corners. My vision's dialed up, okay? My wife or whoever is like, hey, what was that? Like, shush! I gotta focus and concentrate on everything right now because we're in danger, okay? And this is a fear response. And our kids are in fight or flight. And so I do feel this fear response is a human response to escalate sensory abilities to stay alive, right? Something's coming to hurt you. You got to make sure you're aware of it. So I do believe we have this adrenaline fight or flight hypersensory adaptation, okay? So I think if we can reduce that fear response, I think if we can reduce inflammation, which adds to internal fear responses, you're going to see improvements in sensory. How can we do that? I find a lot of balancing with our cortisol, our stress hormone, can help with that fight or flight. I would suggest, and I'm looking for it here on my desk as well, I think I'd keep this organized, The ADD is strong, let me tell you that. Where I found it. Okay, I would consider trying this. Temper Tamer 2. Temper Tamer 2 is a mild tasting adrenal cortisol supplement, and this can help support normal stress hormone levels, thereby taking away this fight or flight response. So it was a long answer, Brianna, but I wanted everybody to hear that. All right, so Iwa, my daughter had this when she was newborn. She made poo every 2 to 3 days, but she didn't cry. I've been told it was because my milk was too fat. No, Iwa, no, your milk was not too fat. No, stop letting, I'm going to be very stereotypical here, and I may be wrong. Please don't let some male doctor tell you about your breast milk causing problems in that kid. Okay? That's just the wrong thing. Okay? So I totally disagree. It was from breastfeeding. All right? I think there's other issues involved. But I hope her pooping's better now. Hey, what a great thing to do. Blame the mom. Have you ever learned from Gerber, people? Gerber? Everybody remember the Gerber story? Let me date myself. Gerber, the baby food company. I think this is back in the 80s. Somebody can Google it. Back in the 80s, there was glass found in the baby food of the Gerber jars, glass baby bottles and baby food bottles, yada, yada. And so everybody was saying to Gerber, oh my God, there's glass, you got to do something about it. And what did Gerber do? Okay. Gerber almost went bankrupt because Gerber blamed the moms. Gerber said, no, you're squeezing our jars too tight. Okay. You're tapping them with a fork because they're hard to open. You're making the glass. Moms. Don't blame moms, right? Gerber almost went bankrupt. Okay. Turned out their factory machine was turning the lids too tight and cracking the glass. So it was their fault. But you get my point. All right. Let's try to help. Let's not try to blame. All right. I see changes in behavior. My autistic son, when the poo isn't nice, he starts behaving differently and more hyper. Exactly. That's one of the major symptoms. Get that poop moving. Okay. If behavior symptoms are still there, we're going to talk about gut infections next week. That's where you're going to go. Luce. Hey, Luce. Hey, Doc. I just started my journey since your podcast. I'm from Canada. My son is constipated, and I'm trying to get a stool test to identify issues. Can you advise what should be testing? The pediatrician doesn't believe that gut issues are related to autism because they don't have the time to read the research. They just don't. Okay? That's not their job. It's their job is well baby visits, antibiotics, and vaccines. That's a pediatrician's job. Okay? Anything outside of there, they're not going to change your oil, they're not going to cut your hair, they're not going to make your dinner. Okay? That's what they're paid to do. That's their job. So if they're not up to date on scientific research, then don't expect an accurate answer from them. Okay? Period. But it obviously is. We should research. Gut issues, what should we specifically test for? All right. So basically, number one, get him pooping. Okay? Get some magnesium and electrolytes, or whatever, and get him pooping. Okay? Pooping on a regular basis. If you want to test something, you need an advanced stool test. Okay, an advanced stool test looks for infections, looks for digestive ability, looks for your probiotics, looks for your prebiotics, looks for inflammation, looks for immune system health. I mean, the advanced stool tests are really pretty amazing. Okay, you can get those on Spectrum Awakening's website if you want. You can get them from your doctor if you can. If you can't, we do have them on their website. We do ship them internationally as well. Okay. All right. Buogu. I hope I said that right. Hey, Doc, how do I help my 5-year-old seeking genital stimulation and humping? We met with an endocrinologist who didn't do much, even though his lab showed elevated levels of luteinizing hormone and FSH. The endocrinologist said it's not so elevated and people live with those levels just fine. Okay, first off, number one, boys touch themselves. Okay, got it. But they shouldn't start till like 11 or 12, let's hold off a little bit. So why is your 5-year-old touching themselves? Okay. Number one, I would be concerned with jock itch. I would be concerned with a yeast infection, a fungal infection. Very, very common in our kids. Okay. Excuse me. Mild yeast infections won't show up on the skin. Okay. You won't have like any skin change. So you can look at it and it'll look normal when it's mild, but it'll still itch. And he's trying to itch. I don't think I ever want to make that face again. I saw myself. As it gets worse, you're going to see the skin turn red, and then you're going to see the skin, become white, kind of like ringworm. Okay, so those are the progressions of topical skin fungal infections. But that's number one. I would be concerned about jock itch. All right. Number two, it just might be a large sensory issue. Trust me, when I had, before COVID, when I had a physical office, I'd have kids come in and they'd get on the table and they'd hump it. And the moms would be like, why does he always do that? I'm like, we need to have a talk, right? So, people touch themselves because it feels good, right? But it shouldn't be sexual until puberty. So it's either a sensory issue or a jock itch. So we got to work on the jock itch. We got to work on the sensory issues, as we mentioned with Temper Tamer 2 or some, other things that decrease inflammation. And start there. Start with that, okay? But I completely disagree with your endocrinologist. I don't like that at all. Because guess what? Lab tests, you go to the lab and you get a lab test done, right? Most labs, not all, but like 99% of them. The reference range, what is normal? And I'm using air quotes for you people listening to me in podcast land. Let's say I get my cholesterol back, and my cholesterol is a wrong example, but we'll use it. I get my cholesterol back, and cholesterol is supposed to be between 140 and 200, okay? I got a range where it's supposed to be, all right? Most labs reference ranges, okay? 99% of this stuff is not based on what's healthy. It's not based on what's medically researched it should be. It's based on a bell curve average of everybody's test that goes in there. So if you get a range like cholesterol 140 to 200, okay, that's my bell curve. And it's based on 2 standard deviations. And that's math nerd talk, which means if you are above the reference range, you're in the top 2.5% of the country, which means 97.5% have less than you do, okay? Vice versa, if you're below range, you're in the lowest 2.5%. 97.5% of the country have more than you. So being out of range, you are already in a group of 1 or 2%. So when I see docs look at labs and say, yeah, well, you can live with it. This is modern medicine's way of saying, I'm not going to help you until you get worse. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see if the body naturally recovers on its own, or I got to actually do something. All right? This is wait and see 21st century medicine. I don't agree with it. Okay? What I would do, Bogu, is take those results to another endocrinologist and say, I don't like this. I don't like this. What's going on? Does my child have a tumor, which is a potential cause of this stuff? Okay, I don't think your child has a tumor because the levels have to be super high, but I'd go get a second opinion. Ewa, my son stopped tiptoeing with a parasite. Right, again, you got bad stuff out. Sulika also talked about sensory, which we talked about. Alyssa, we have a question on brown log train. I started giving my 6-year-old the brown log train. That's the magnesium electrolytes. It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you. I have a couple questions. The container suggests 1 scoop on an empty stomach. How often should I give it to him? Okay. Things that treat bowel consistency are, you just alter it based on your child's response, okay? You give a dose today, you see the results tomorrow in the toilet, all right? So if you give him something suggested on the bottle and he's still constipated, it's not enough, up the dose. You give a dose and it's got water, drop the dose, okay? FDA makes us put recommended dosing on all bottles, but something like this, you need to adjust based on your child's response. All right. There's a warning about accidental overdose being a risk for children under 8. My son takes an iron supplement every morning, which contains yada yada. If I give him with capsule of iron at the same time, would that be an overdose? No, not at all. No, that's totally fine. There's no iron in brown. Is there iron in brown log train? If so, it's so minimal. No, you're fine. You're fine. Nina, there is. There's like a handful of milligrams of iron in brown log train, part of the electrolyte balance. And even though iron's constipating, there's way more magnesium in there to counterbalance it. But it does help with the electrolytes, so you're fine. Nina, can Giardia cause late onset sensory issues? Yeah. And aggression? Definitely. We saw that in the stool test. Yeah. 100%. Parasites, nasty. Parasites cause behavior problems. Parasites cause anger and psychosis. Get that out, Nina. Get that out. Haley, can you take the yeast mold bundle at the same time as a detox supplement? Yeah, I think you could. I think you could. All right. Zola or Zoya, what do you do with stimming? I find stimming to be, number one, medically fine. All right. It looks weird. It's socially awkward. But medically, the child's doing it because it feels good. Why am I going to stop something that feels good for a kid as long as nobody's getting hurt? So stimming for me is just a sign of brain activity and neuron and nerve system activity, okay? I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't tell any of my patients to suppress it. Yes, socially awkward, go to the supermarket and they're doing whatever, but that's just you. That's not them. That's not their health. It's not their medical status. But what I find it to be is the body trying to wake itself up. Okay, it's like, come on. Yeah. All right. So we'll give certain stimulants, like I find our temper tamer supplement helps a lot. I find our attention on the double supplement can help a lot. So I would go there, but I see stimming as just trying to get the body moving. It also depends on the type of stimming. I saw a patient today who was starting to push their 6-year-old molars, right? So they're humming a lot. And they're like, and that humming, the mom described as a vocal tic. And yes, it is, but it's the child just trying to soothe their pain. They found that humming numbs the pain of the tooth coming out. So it depends on the type of stimming, but you get my idea. All right, Kieran, can constipation cause ammonia? How can we control excessive laughing and banging on the floor? We're using colloidal silver and significant reduction in self-injurious behaviors, but silly behavior is out of control now. All right, Kieran, I love what you said. So let me repeat it in reverse order. We're using colloidal silver for a week and had significant reductions in self-injurious behaviors, but silly behavior is now out of control. How amazing that you stopped self-injurious behaviors in a week with colloidal silver. We're not putting him on risperidone and putting him in a zombie and just giving him a pharmaceutical straitjacket and shoving him in the corner. We're not giving him Prozac, or Lexapro. We're understanding why they're hurting themselves. They hurt themselves because they're in pain and they want to show you. If they can't tell you with words, they want to show you. They're like, this is what I feel like. Okay? So colloidal silver kills gut bugs, which cause pain, which cause the self-injurious behaviors. So I love that, all right? But how can we control excessive laughing and banging on the floor? I think there's still infections in there. I think we just need to treat them longer. So we can either stay on the colloidal silver for another month or two, or switch it up with like grapefruit seed extract or other herbs that kill gut bugs. But if you've only been on colloidal silver for a week, let's keep it for like a month and we just got to give it more time, okay? Also, can constipation cause ammonia? Indirectly, yes, because what's actually creating the ammonia is bad bacteria. So different gut infections, mostly bacteria, but there are others, will produce nitrogen that gets converted into ammonia, gets absorbed into your body and your bloodstream, and now you have high ammonia because of them. Thanks a lot, okay? It's just a sign that we need to kill the bugs, all right? I don't think constipation causes the ammonia directly, but it's this indirectly because there's a bacterial infection and we're not getting it out. All right, Nima, I'm giving my daughter yeast mold bundle. How long should I give it? I'd say 2 to 3 months. Her poop routine has gotten better on it for sure. Nice. Let's do 2 to 3 months. Lee, we had a follow-up. All right. Lee. Lee is talking about our clinic. I need to write this down. Lee needs some notes from an appointment from December 19th. So, Lee, I apologize again. We've had some of this happen over the holidays where we weren't able to get communications from our clinic out to you guys, but we need to make sure it happens. So I will take care of that right after this. All right. Or at least talk to my staff, but we'll move forward on it, Lee, today. Thank you. Hey, squeaky wheel, everybody. This is what we got to remember. Hey, if we want help from people, everybody's busy, everybody's overloaded, but squeaky wheel, squeaky wheel, squeaky wheel, squeaky wheel. Okay. Kieran, can ion cleanse cause constipation? I don't know. Ask them because we are changing electrolytes. Also, zinc causes constipation in my kids. Why? That I don't know. I'm not sure, Kieran. That's a good one. Carolyn, good evening. What's the most common reason for my daily headache in a preteen? My son is 12 and has a headache every day since November last year. Carolyn, great question. I had headaches at that age. I had a lot. I had bad migraines. Turns out mine was dairy. So with hormonal timed medical issues, we have to be concerned about if they're hormones. But I would also look at food reactions and headaches, because that's the most common cause of headaches is foods. So take a look at the foods. Also make sure he's not constipated. But we may have to use hormone supplements like Common Cool, which could help. Loose. My son is 4.5, nonverbal, just starting to talk. He's been almost a month taking our new multivitamin, Multispectrum Complete. Last week, I started Superfolinic and Power and Focus. He went from constipated to diarrhea after Power and Focus. I've reduced the serving. Can you advise? Probably because there's a small amount of magnesium in Power and Focus. Let me see how much. Yeah, there's 100 milligrams of magnesium in there. So that's probably doing it. Cut down the dose. Cut down the dose and see what happens. Yeah. See if that works. If not, we may have a gut infection. Carolyn, do you know anything about Lactobacillus reuteri, which we talked about in the research? Connie, hey doc. How soon will the histamine C and NAC from Spectrum Awakening? My daughter's 11. What dosage should I start? So Connie, that's going to be what's on the label, on the bottle. For NAC, it's 1 cap twice a day. For the histamine C, it's 1 scoop given daily, I believe. But follow the bottle instructions. And Connie, I think, is one of the recipients. We were able to donate some supplements to families in California who have kids with autism, and they were affected by the wildfires, whether their houses burned down or whatever may have happened. So we wanted to make sure we're supporting the lung health of everybody who's been exposed to that smoke inhalation. So we have donated, I think, $9,000 worth of our supplements to help with the lung health of some families out there in the LA wildfire. So Connie, if that's you, yeah, everybody start taking it, and I hope you guys are okay. Christina, hey, Dr. Skowron, I love listening to your podcast. Thank you. I started giving my child the Skowron solution. We're at step 2, serotonin. He's also started taking the Multispectrum Complete, and it seems to increase his hyperactivity. Irritability, and he's allowed. Is this due to the B vitamins? Well, it's tough to tell. I mean, our multi has 33 ingredients in it, but I would definitely reduce the dose of the multi for now, and start, working on, start going down the road of the rest of the Skowron solution. I don't think they'll improve over time until we do something. It might be gut issue and gut infection, but I love that you're doing one thing at a time. This is what we all have to do, kind of watch for effects so we can adjust. Everything's not going to be the same for every kid, all right? So you've got to do one at a time. You got to test, you got to trial and do what works for your kids. All right, guys, we only have time for a couple more questions. Danny, this podcast is 100% us. My daughter is on magnesium to keep it soft, but docs also give her sodium, picosulfate liquid, and Dulcolax suppositories. I'm worried about long-term lazy bowel. Yeah, I would be too. I mean, the body adjusts. The body adjusts to the world around it, okay? So if you're making something work, it's going to get stronger. If you're not working anything, it's not going to get stronger. It's going to get weaker because it's not doing anything, okay? Bella's always on. Good morning from Carlsbad. I gave my 15-year-old daughter supplements, coconut water, fresh celery juice, and cilantro, wild blueberries, and brown log train. Anything else I should add? Bella, I would just go with prunes and soft pears, classics. I always used to have this balance for my daughter. When my daughter was young, I would have 1 banana to 2 prunes. And that was the balance for her colon. It would too many bananas without prunes, constipated. Too many prunes without bananas, diarrhea. Brianna says, is it all magnesiums or a certain kind? Brianna, great question. Different magnesiums are absorbed differently by the body, but all magnesiums loosen your stools. So certain magnesiums that don't absorb well, you only need a little bit. Magnesiums that do get absorbed well, and there's less in the colon, you need more of, but they all work. I think anything on top of that is marketing. We use magnesium glycinate or bisglycinate because it's sweet, because the glycine in, that's paired with the magnesium instead of oxide or citrate or malate or threonate or carnate, the glycine is sweet, so you're going to get a sweet flavor to it. Got a shaking head. What can I do with this? Look for gut infections, gotta treat gut infections. Carolyn, my twins poop more with thiamine because thiamine, which is vitamin B1, is a very important mitochondrial vitamin. But not enough, so we'll order brown log train. Excellent. Can we use Mitomax and ATP together? Yes, definitely. All right, only a couple more questions. Maria, hey doc, it's now 7 weeks. All right, Maria. This is another patient where I think the holidays at our clinic, some things were dropped. So I will contact our secretary. All right. Iwa asked about supplements in the UK. That's mandymart.com. Gada says lysine is a precursor from carnitine. Can I use it? I never have, so I can't promise you what effect you'll get. Okay. Danny, unrelated. My daughter had 1 gram of creatinine a day. When she had blood test, her creatinine levels were elevated. Is this anything to worry about? Danny, I'm glad I got to your question. There are many things in medicine that sound very similar. Okay. Creatine and creatinine only differ by the letters I and N, okay? Just there's an extra N in the creatinine, not the creatine. But they're completely different substances, okay? Very confusing word-wise, but totally different. Look, as an example, I was ordering creatine levels in a patient of mine at Yale. They couldn't figure out what test I wanted. They're like, here, creatinine. No, creatine. And they're like, oh, creatinine? No. Creatine? They're like, creatine kinase? No. Creatine. It's very confusing because the words are very similar, but they're totally different. You have nothing to worry about, except high creatinine usually means dehydration. So that's more water. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, guys, I got to wrap up, but I love these questions. Carissa, last one. All right. I started the Skowron protocol for my 16-year-old's nonverbal son. Super serotonin seems to make him angry and agitated. Why would that be? Because he's constipated. Okay. Not to just, keep plugging the same horse, right? But serotonin also helps with peristalsis and with gut movement. So if you're constipated and, that serotonin's pushing stuff through, you got this big old poop in there, it's going to hurt. Then he's angry and he's agitated. So stop that, get him pooping, and then go back to it. All right, everybody. Great podcast. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the live questions. I love answering them. But this is where we start. All right. If you've got a child on the spectrum, you're new to biomedical, or you're doing it for a while, but you're like, I can't see the forest because of the trees. Then let's go back to the basics. And that's what these first 3 months podcasts are going to be about. All right. Your kid has to poop. Okay. A lot every day. If he's just doing a little pile, not enough every day. Okay. Big brown log. So what are you going to do? Magnesium and electrolytes, like our brown log train supplement, I believe is the best. There are also other things like senna. There's also water, fiber I'm concerned about because it can get stuck if you don't have enough water. And for our kids who have mitochondrial issues and hypotonia, they are uniquely predisposed to constipation because the muscles of their colon can't push that gut out, can't push that poop out. Okay. So what do you do with that? Well, you give mitochondrial supplements like our Mito ATP, which works great in the gut, and or our Mitomax, which is full body. You can do both. But that's kind of opening Pandora's box for our kids with autism and their poop. And trust me, it is the first place you should start if you haven't done it, because you can improve your child's behavior. You can improve your child's sense of pain. You can improve the toe walking. You can improve the hyperactivity with the bare bones simpleness. Back to basics. Let's poop everything out every day. Okay. Let's start there. Next week, we're going to roll into other behaviors, self-injurious behaviors, gut infections, parasites, yeast, candida, mold, bacteria, worms. We're going to be talking about all this stuff next week. So make sure to use our coupon on the weekend, which Poop20. I know it's backwards on your screen. Poop20 going to get you 20% off any of your supplements, any of your lab tests. Expires February 9th. And thank you again for doing everything you can to help your child. Make sure you share this podcast. We've got to get this information out to other families and other parents around the world. So again, thanks for doing everything you can for your kids. And thanks for helping us awaken the spectrum with Spectrum Awakening. See you next week, guys.